Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Media Literacy Academy for Adults. I am Dr. Yael Kirshenberg, and this lesson is number 2. And this time we're going to study about mass communication, more communication, I would say. I think it is very important to understand the basics of mass communication in order to be media literate or be able to analyze and evaluate media properly the way we mentioned last time. Let's get started. First, let's see what we mean by communication. To communicate means to exchange messages between two bodies. Messages are transmitted from point A to point B with a clear intention. So, how do we transmit information? Normally, on the personal level of communication, we do it through different mediums available to us. So, for example, uh, our voice, our lips, our ears, our eyes, our body language, our hands, facial expressions, our writing, reading, even our clothing. All of these are actually mediums of communication. They actually help us deliver our message, the things that we want to say or communicate. Um, they are the means, the helping tools, if you will, by which you can actually do communicate. What else is involved in here? Let's see. Let's say that in plain English, communication involves the transmission of messages, of information from a source to a receiver through medium, causing some kind of effect, or what we call a response or reaction. Let's look how it is exactly done. We will distinguish between interpersonal communication and mass communication. So first, what is interpersonal communication? Well, the source of the message is usually one person. We can also call that person the initiator of the message, the encoder, or the sender. The person who receives the message is the receiver. We can also call that person the decoder or the interpreter. If the conversations or the communication continues and the receiver reacts to the sender, he or she becomes now the encoder. So the creator of the response, what we call the sender. Let's see how it happens. So first, information is being encoded, sent by some means of communication, voice or body language, as we mentioned before, to another person. Again, that receiver decodes the message, then interprets it according to his or her understanding of the language or life experiences. And finally, encodes a response, what we call gives a feedback. Now, the original sender now becomes a receiver, and so on and so forth. That circle, that process can go on and on until conversation or communication is ended by one of the communicators. So now that was basic interpersonal communication. With the evolution of mass media, which is print media, newspapers, books, radio, television, and the internet, things have changed. Information can be delivered and reach to large audiences via different means. And let's see what we're talking about. Mass communication is different from personal communication in many ways. One very noticeable difference is the means of communication. Mass communication is done by different means, such as traditional means, such as books, um, magazines, newspapers, radio, television, lately internet. Um, and by the way, as we all know, media convergence uh, caused all traditional media to be part of the internet as well. Um, you can find all those traditional mediums on the internet, but that's for another lesson. Let's look at more differences between interpersonal and mass communication and talk about why it's important for us to understand those differences when we study media literacy. So we saw that interpersonal communication is one person sending a flexible message that can go back and forth in direct contact, in person, on the phone, or nowadays on video chat. The receiver decodes and interprets, and then both encode and decode to continue the conversation. Um, there's always immediate feedback. On the other hand, mass communication is different in that the source of the message is usually an organization, and the messages are identical. They're not flexible. In fact, they are very mechanical and sent one time, one way to many audiences through different means of communication. It is important to understand, by the way, that mass communication is a multi-million business that exists for profit and gain of capital only. The large mixed audiences decode the messages and interpret them according to their culture or, age, sexual orientation, religion, if you will, and so forth. Obviously, not all of them interpret messages the same way because not all of them are coming from the same background. Now, traditionally, the feedback was delayed. People who wanted to respond to messages had to write the responses on a paper, put it in an envelope, put a stamp, go to the post office, mail it. This really took a long time. That was time consuming, and it's not happening today. Today, with the internet and smart devices, people can respond immediately anywhere on any device. Um, on social media like Twitter or Facebook or some other means. So that's not happening today. So the feedback in mass communication today is immediate as well, can be immediate. So now let's look at something that is really, really very important to our media literacy lessons. Communication and culture have a lot to do with each other. First of all, the media mirrors our culture. When you consume media of any form, you can tell what is accepted, what is valued, what is normal or not normal, and so forth in a given society. As a very powerful tool of communication, the media have a great responsibility to deliver information that is genuine, unbiased, informative, objective, and inclusive of all members of society, where the people are being the main concern. Now, remember, in the field of media literacy, we focus on mass communication, not so much interpersonal. And in the field of media literacy, we also want you to be a media active citizen whose job is to ensure that the media reflect and keep essential cultural values and norms while acting according to high standards of ethics and truth. So that's how it related to culture. That brings us to the subject of how much power the media really have over us, how influential, uh, maybe even manipulating it can be. Media consumers, all of us, actually, we're talking about all of us, have to be aware of that humongous power that media indeed have, and how negatively or positively it can affect us. We agreed that the responsibilities of the media is to be transparent, sensitive to all members of society, to keep in mind that benefits of the people comes first, and they have to be objective. And just imagine that how much power it gives media, those elements. We know that if the media, for whatever reason, decides to deviate from those principles, it can really be devastating. The effect can be horrible. Um, now, now that that was the responsibility of the media, but we too have even a greater responsibility, and this is exactly what we're doing in this course in media literacy. We want you to acquire skills that will prepare you for critically thinking, um, in thinking of how media work. We also want you to be aware of the media effects. Um, with the skills that you will be learning in media literacy, you will be also able to analyze the media messages, uh, apparent and hidden intentions. Understand that the media reflect and shape our culture. We definitely want you to respect and value reliable media information because it is important and beneficial for you, as active citizen, individual, or as a society. Finally, when you are skilled in media, you will be able to create and produce media messages and information yourself, while doing so according to the same ethical and legal standards we expect of media itself. Uh, to summarize this lesson, we should understand and accept that both the media and their consumers should have equal power and responsibilities. Why? Because we need to maintain our culture, our values, our fairness, and democratic principles. Truth and ethics should be the main motive of the media and mass communication. Money, glory, social and political affiliation, or fame should never be the engine that moves the media's wheel. You, on the other hand, should engage in critical thinking, questioning, interpreting, creating, and acting while respecting and appreciating media messages and information. Our next lesson is going to be about the history of mass communication. Learning about the history of mass communication will teach you the phases and the transforming of mass communication and mass media throughout past years to our present day. I can't wait. So see you all again in lesson number 3.